The night sky above Earth was silent, but inside the great observatories, scientists were not sleeping. They had been watching the strange signal for many weeks. At first, they believed it was only a star pulsing, but then the numbers appeared. The signal was repeating in a pattern, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13. It was the Fibonacci sequence. It was not natural. It was intelligent. The news traveled fast, from one laboratory to another, from one country to another, until finally the whole world knew someone or something was trying to talk to Earth. At first, people were excited. They dreamed of meeting a new friend in the universe. They imagined peace, knowledge, and maybe even answers to the biggest questions, but deep inside fear grew. If they could send such a signal across the stars, how powerful must they be, and why were they watching humanity? On the seventh day after the signal, the skies changed. Astronomers pointed their telescopes to the outer edge of the solar system. They saw something huge, something moving. Not a rock, not a comet, but a fleet, strange ships, dark and massive, sliding through space like shadows, each one larger than the tallest towers of Earth, each one glowing with cold blue lights. It was the first contact. Governments around the world went into chaos. Military bases were placed on high alert. Planes filled the skies. Satellites turned their eyes toward the newcomers. The United Nations called for an emergency meeting. Inside the Great Hall, leaders shouted, argued, and feared. Some wanted peace, others wanted weapons ready. But no one truly knew what to expect. The alien fleet did not send a greeting. It did not send a warning. It only waited. Silent, still. Watching, the ship stayed at the edge of the solar system, just beyond the orbit of Pluto, like hunters standing at the forest line, and humans were the prey inside. Ordinary people felt the fear too. Families watched the news every night. Children asked questions their parents could not answer. Are they good or bad? Will they hurt us? No one knew. Panic began to spread. Some cities filled with protests, others with prayer, and many with silence. Humanity had always wondered if it was alone. Now it knew the truth, and the truth was terrifying. Back in the observatories, a young scientist noticed something strange. The alien ships were not only waiting, they were scanning. A line of invisible energy stretched from them to Earth, as if they were reading the planet, measuring it, studying it. It felt less like a visit and more like an inspection. In the deep night, when most people were asleep, a second signal arrived. This one was different. It was clearer, sharper, and heavier. It carried only 3 words: submit or perish. The scientists froze. The generals clenched their fists. The leaders turned pale, and ordinary people did not even hear it. The message was hidden, translated only by the machines, but those who read it understood. This was not a meeting. This was a threat. And so, the world stood at the edge of history, for the first time. The human race faced a choice together. Would it bow to the unknown, or would it rise against the impossible? No one yet knew the answer. But one thing was clear. The first contact had changed everything. Forever. The second signal changed everything. At first, many leaders wanted to keep it secret. They feared the people would lose hope. They feared panic, riots, and collapse. But secrets do not last long in a world filled with satellites and networks. Soon, whispers spread. And then the truth came out. The aliens had spoken. Not with kindness, not with welcome, but with a command: submit or perish. When the message reached the world, fear became fire. Some believed humanity should bow, better to live under control than to die in fire, they said. Others shouted that humans should fight, better to die free than live as slaves. The world had never been so divided, yet never had it been so united by the same fear. Everyone felt the same shadow pressing over them, an enemy above. The stars watching, judging, waiting. In hidden rooms deep underground, leaders gathered, generals placed maps on tables, scientists explained the limits of human weapons. Compared to the alien fleet, Earth was like a child with sticks and stones. Nuclear bombs, the strongest weapons of humans, were only sparks against those giant ships. No one had seen the aliens' true strength. But everyone understood. If they could cross the stars, they could destroy Earth with ease. But in the middle of despair, a strange thing happened. The message was studied again and again. Every language expert, every code breaker, every AI system worked on it. 3 words, so simple. But something was strange. Submit or perish was the translation. But in the alien code there was something more. A layer beneath the words. Like a second voice hidden under the first. A young linguist from India noticed it first. He said, "This is not only a threat, it is a test." The others stared at him, confused. He explained, "The structure of the message is like a trap, but also like a puzzle." When the hidden code was unlocked, new words appeared. "They are measuring us," he whispered. "They want to see if we will break or if we will rise." This discovery spread like wildfire among the secret councils. It was not only about submission or death, it was about proving worth. The aliens were not just conquerors. They were examiners, watching humanity as if it were a species standing at the gates of something greater. A test of survival, a test of spirit. This truth gave hope to some. If it was a test, then maybe there was a chance to pass it. But it also gave fear to others. For if they failed, it would not only mean death, it would mean extinction. The end of human history, erased from the stars forever. Ordinary people did not know about the hidden layer. They only knew the surface threat, but their reactions showed the truth. Some fell into despair, others prepared for war, and many held their heads high and said, "We are human, we will not kneel." In the sky, the alien fleet remained silent. They did not move closer. They did not fire a shot. But their presence was louder than thunder. The message was already sent. Now they waited. Would humanity choose fear, or would humanity choose defiance? In the halls of power, the debate raged on, but slowly, a decision began to take shape. Humanity could not run, it could not hide, and it could not bow. There was only one path left to answer the hidden message, not with submission, but with resistance. And so, the seeds of unity began to grow. The hidden message had done what centuries of war, politics, and borders could not. It made humans see themselves not as nations, but as one species, one family, standing together against the dark. The aliens may have come with power, but humanity had discovered its greatest weapon, the will to fight. The hidden message spread across the world like fire in dry grass. Even though leaders tried to control the news, even though governments begged for calm, people always found out. And when they learned the truth, the world began to shake. In the great cities, giant screens showed endless reports. Some channels called for peace, others screamed of war. Fear poured through the streets, markets crashed, food was hoarded, and banks overflowed with panicked faces. Humanity, so strong in its technology, suddenly felt small and weak. Children asked their parents if the aliens would come tomorrow. Mothers hugged them tighter. Fathers stayed awake all night staring at the sky. Old men whispered that they had survived wars, plagues, and disasters. But this enemy was beyond any war they had known. Airports filled with people trying to leave major cities. Villages closed their gates. Some families dug bunkers. Others prayed. In temples, churches, and mosques, the sound of sirens echoed in the night as governments tested their warning systems. For the first time in history, every corner of the earth was thinking about the same thing. The aliens, meanwhile, inside the secret halls of power, leaders argued without rest. Some demanded surrender, saying survival was more important than pride. Others demanded war, saying honor was more important than life. But most of them were afraid of something else. They feared losing control of their people. If panic spread too far, nations could collapse before the aliens even fired a single shot. In one meeting, a general slammed his hand on the table. "If we surrender, we are no longer human," he shouted. Another leader replied, "If we resist, we will all die." The room filled with silence, for neither man was wrong. On the U streets, chaos grew, shops were looted, rumors spread faster than truth. Some said the aliens had already landed in secret. Others said the government was hiding advanced weapons. Each rumor brought more fear, more panic, more distrust. But within the chaos, something else began to rise. Not all humans were paralyzed by fear. Some stood taller. Some looked at the sky not with terror but with determination. In small towns, neighbors formed groups to protect each other. In big cities, strangers offered food and water to those in need. And across the world, millions began to whisper the same words, "We will not kneel." The aliens had not fired a weapon, yet their silence was sharper than any blade. By doing nothing, they forced humans to turn against each other. They made nations doubt, leaders tremble, and people break. It was the perfect strategy of control, to make humans destroy themselves before the real battle even began. In laboratories and bunkers, scientists worked without rest. They studied the signals, the energy scans, and the alien ships. But the more they learned, the more they realized how small humanity was. The alien technology was thousands of years ahead. And yet, in that despair, they also found courage. Because if the aliens were testing humanity, then the test was not only about weapons, it was about spirit. Night after night, people watched the skies. They saw nothing but stars. Yet in their hearts, they felt the weight of eyes watching back. Every light in the sky became suspicious. Every comet looked like a warship. Every shadow brought fear. Still, in the middle of panic, humanity was changing. The fear was real. The chaos was real, but so was the fire building inside. The same panic that could destroy them was also pushing them closer together, closer to a decision, closer to unity, closer to the moment when the world would finally stop running and start fighting. And so, while fear gripped every nation, while panic ruled every city, a quiet question grew in every heart. Would humanity collapse under its own fear? Or would it rise from the panic like a storm? The answer was not clear, but the choice was coming, and the aliens were still waiting. Watching, measuring, judging, the world stood on the edge of a decision. For weeks, the alien fleet had waited at the edge of the solar system. They did not speak again. They did not move closer. They only watched. And that silence was heavier than war. Inside secret bunkers, the leaders of nations gathered. The air was filled with fear and anger. Maps of Earth and charts of alien ships covered the walls. Generals whispered strategies. Diplomats argued. Scientists begged for more time. But one question returned again and again. Do we submit, or do we resist? The president of one powerful nation spoke first. He said surrender was the only chance for survival. If we kneel, maybe they will spare us, he said. If we fight, billions will die. Across the table, another leader stood. Her voice was strong, filled with fire. If we kneel, we are no longer human, she said. We may live, but it will not be life, it will be chains. The room fell silent. Everyone knew both sides spoke the truth. But truth was not enough. They had to choose, and the choice would shape the future of the entire human race. Outside those rooms, the world trembled. On the streets, people carried banners. Some demanded peace, others demanded war. Some begged the leaders to kneel. Others screamed that humanity must fight. Every city was divided. Every family was torn. Every heart carried the same question. What does it mean to be human? Scientists presented reports to the council. The alien technology was beyond comprehension. Their weapons could turn a city to dust in seconds. Their shields could block every human missile. It was not a fair fight. It was not even close. But one scientist, an old man with tired eyes, whispered something different. We cannot win with weapons alone, he said. We must win with will. His words echoed through the hall. And for the first time, the leaders looked at each other, not as rivals, but as fellow humans. Nations that once hated each other began to see the truth. The aliens were forcing them to make a choice, not as countries, but as one species, one family of Earth. In that moment, the council made its decision, not in one voice, not in one vote, but in the silent agreement of every soul in the room. Humanity would not kneel. If death came, it would come with honor. If war came, it would come with unity. The choice was made. Humanity would resist. News spread across the globe. At first, people were terrified. Some wept, Some prayed, some cursed the decision. But then something strange happened. The fear began to turn into fire. The panic began to turn into strength. People raised flags, painted walls, and shouted in the streets, "We are human, we will not bow." The aliens had expected weakness, but instead, they found defiance. From the smallest villages to the tallest cities, from the poorest farms to the richest towers, the message was the same. Humanity had chosen, and its choice was resistance. Still, deep in the night, fear whispered in every heart. What if this choice was the end? What if Earth was burned to ash? What if humanity's pride brought only death? But even in that fear there was strength, for it is in fear that courage is born, and it is in darkness that fire burns brightest. The aliens had given humanity a choice, and humanity had answered, not with silence, not with surrender, but with the voice of billions, the voice of one species, the voice of Earth. We will not kneel. The choice was made. Humanity would not kneel. But a choice alone was not enough. The world now had to prepare to resist the strongest enemy it had ever faced. In every nation, secret orders were given. Factories that once built cars now built weapons, labs that once studied medicine now studied energy, universities that once debated ideas now designed machines of war. For the first time in history, human knowledge was pointed toward one single goal: survival. Old enemies shook hands, borders became less important. Soldiers who once faced each other now trained together. The flags of nations still waved, but beneath them another flag began to rise. The flag of Earth, the idea that humanity was no longer divided into countries, but was one species standing together against the dark. In underground bunkers, scientists worked day and night. They studied the scans, the signals, the alien ships. Every detail was important. Every weakness, no matter how small, could mean the difference between victory and extinction. They knew human weapons were far weaker, but they also knew one secret. Humans learned fast. Engineers built new kinds of drones. Pilots trained in zero-gravity simulators. Soldiers tested exosuits that could give them strength beyond their bodies. Every tool, every experiment, every discovery was pushed to its limit. Time was short. The aliens were still waiting at the edge of the solar system, but no one knew when they would strike, so humanity had to be ready. Meanwhile, deep under mountains and oceans, new bases were built, cities of steel hidden from the sky, command centers that could keep running even if the surface burned, tunnels stretched for miles, filled with supplies, weapons, and hope. Children were taught how to hide, how to survive, but also how to dream of victory. Because fear could not be the only lesson, they had to believe they could win. The resistance was not only about soldiers and scientists, it was also about ordinary people. Farmers grew extra crops to feed the armies, workers repaired broken machines, teachers told stories of courage so the next generation would not lose heart. Every hand, every mind, every soul was needed, because this was not only a war of weapons, it was a war of survival. In the skies, human fleets began to form. Old satellites were upgraded. New warships were launched. Some were small, fragile, and untested, but they carried the hopes of billions. Pilots looked at the stars with both fear and pride, knowing that one day soon, they would meet the enemy face to face. Still, doubts remained. Some leaders whispered in secret that resistance was hopeless. Some citizens still begged for peace. Some even tried to contact the aliens, hoping to be spared. But those voices grew, weaker as the spirit of resistance grew stronger. Because the truth was simple, there was no path back. The choice was already made, and humanity had chosen to fight. The aliens must have seen the changes. Their ships continued to wait, silent and cold. Perhaps they were studying, perhaps they were laughing, but humanity did not care. The preparations continued, the resistance grew, and with every passing day humans discovered something new inside themselves, a strength they had never known before. And so, the planet that had always been divided, the species that had always fought itself, was becoming something new. Not just nations, not just people, but a united force, the resistance of Earth born from fear, built on courage, and guided by hope, waiting for the moment when the first shot would be fired, and the war for humanity's future would begin. The days of waiting turned into weeks. The weeks turned into months. Humanity prepared, but the enemy stayed silent. The alien fleet hovered. At the edge of the solar system, like wolves circling a campfire, their patience was endless. But humans knew it was only a matter of time. Then, without warning, it happened. The first strike, on a clear morning above a shining city. The sky cracked open. A beam of light fell from space. It was silent at first, but then the ground shook. Buildings melted and fire swallowed the streets. In seconds, the city was gone. Millions of lives turned to ash, and the world screamed. News spread like lightning. Every screen, every radio, every network carried the same images. A burning crater where a city had stood. A silent wound carved into the earth. People wept. Leaders froze. Soldiers clenched their fists. The aliens had finally spoken, not with words but with fire. In the secret war rooms, alarms rang, generals shouted orders, fighter jets scrambled into the skies, satellites tracked the alien beam, but it was gone before they could react. The attack was not random, it was precise, a demonstration, a warning, and a message. This is what happens when you resist. Fear struck deeper than ever before. Some leaders demanded surrender. If we bow now, maybe they will stop, they cried. But others shouted back, if we bow now, they will never stop. The arguments grew louder, but the choice had already been made in the hearts of billions. The city was gone, but humanity was still alive. And humanity was angry. On the streets, the panic returned. People rushed to shelters. Children cried in the arms of their parents. But in the middle of the fear, a new fire burned. For the first time, the enemy had shown its power, and for the first time, humanity knew what it was truly fighting against. The resistance grew stronger that night. Soldiers trained harder. Scientists pushed faster. Every worker, every farmer, every builder carried the memory of the fallen city in their hearts. No one wanted to kneel, not anymore. The first strike had taken lives, but it had also given humanity something the aliens did not expect: unity. In secret bases, a plan began to form. The aliens wanted humans to surrender, but humans had learned from the strike. The enemy was powerful, but they were not gods. Their weapons could be tracked, their ships could be studied, their arrogance could be used against them. Pilots whispered to each other before sleeping, "We cannot stop their beams, but maybe we can strike back." Engineers nodded quietly. They worked on new weapons, not to destroy the alien fleet yet, but to show the enemy that Earth was not helpless, to show them that the first strike would not be the last word. Meanwhile, in the silence of space, the alien fleet waited again. No second beam came, no second city burned. They had made their point. Now they watched to see if humanity would break. But instead they saw something else. Billions of humans standing taller. Billions of humans whispering the same promise. We will fight. The first strike was meant to bring fear, and it did, but it also brought fury. The kind of fury that could not be tamed. The kind of fury that turned fear into courage. The kind of fury that forged unity out of chaos. The aliens had shown their strength, but humanity had discovered its own, not in weapons, not in technology, but in the fire of survival, the fire of a species that refused to kneel. The first strike had begun the war, but it had also awakened something unstoppable, the human spirit. The ruins of the first city still smoked, ash hung in the air like a ghost. The fire of the alien strike had burned deep, but instead of silence, the world answered with a roar. Billions mourned the dead, but in their grief, something stronger began to rise, not surrender, not despair, but fury, and from fury came courage. In villages and cities, people lifted their heads. They had seen the enemy's power. They had seen their fragility, but still, they stood. Humans had always been fragile, yet fragile things could be unbreakable. When pushed, they endured. When beaten, they rose. In secret hangars, pilots prepared. Their ships were small, clumsy, compared to alien giants, but the pilots climbed inside with steady hands. They knew the risks, they knew the odds. Still, they whispered before takeoff. For Earth, scientists refused to rest. They studied wreckage from the destroyed city, bits of melted metal, fragments of strange energy. Even in loss, they searched for knowledge. Because humans had one strength the aliens did not: the ability to learn and the will to never stop. In the streets, artists painted walls with symbols of hope. Flags of Earth waved. Beside old national banners, songs of resistance filled radios. Stories of courage spread faster than fear. The people began to believe, not because they were stronger, but because they were human. The aliens, silent in the far reaches of space, could not understand. They had expected submission, they had expected collapse, but instead they saw humans growing stronger. Not in weapons, but in spirit. Every tragedy became fuel. Every tear became fire. Every death became a reason to fight harder. And so the human spirit blazed brighter than ever before. A soldier stood on the ruins of his city. His home was gone, his family lost, but he raised his weapon to the sky and swore, "You may take everything, but you will never take our will." Others heard his words and repeated them until they became a promise carried across the world. Leaders, too, began to change where once they argued, now they listened. Where once they thought of borders, now they thought of Earth. The aliens had unknowingly done what centuries of war never could. They had united humanity, not with love, but with fear. And yet from that, fear grew strength. Even children played games pretending to fight alien ships. Even elders told tales of heroes who never bowed. Every generation began to carry the same story, the story that humans were small but unbreakable. Weak in body, strong in spirit, the Rai. Aliens had weapons of unimaginable power, but humanity had something more dangerous, something that could not be measured, something that could not be scanned or destroyed. The will to survive, the refusal to kneel, the endless fire of the human heart. And so in the shadow of death, the human spirit became a weapon, invisible but unshakable, a force that could carry fragile ships into impossible battles, a force that could turn ordinary men and women into legends, a force that the aliens had never faced before. The first strike had been meant to break Earth. Instead, it had awakened Earth. The fire of survival burned brighter than ever, and the spirit of humanity rose to the stars, ready to face whatever came next, because humanity had finally understood the true battlefield was not in space. It was in the heart. And in that battle, humans were stronger than anyone imagined. The aliens believed their first strike had broken Earth. They believed fear would keep humans on their knees, but instead it had lit a fire that now began to spread. In hidden bases, the resistance worked in silence. Scientists combined alien fragments with human machines. Engineers built strange weapons never seen before. Pilots trained for missions no human had ever dared to fly. It was dangerous. It was desperate. But it was the only chance. One night, deep in space, a small human fleet launched. The world held its breath. These were not mighty warships. They were tiny compared to the alien giants. But inside them were men and women with iron will. Every heartbeat, every breath carried the hopes of billions. The target was not the whole alien fleet. That would be suicide. The mission was simple. Strike one ship. Prove humanity was not powerless. Show the enemy that Earth could fight back. The ships moved in silence, using shadows of planets to hide. Their engines burned weak but steady, their weapons untested but ready. And then, at the edge of Neptune, they saw it. An alien vessel, massive and glowing with cold light. It floated, like a mountain in space, silent, arrogant, unstoppable. The commander of the human fleet whispered, "This is for Earth." And the first shot was fired. The alien shields flared with blue fire. The human missile exploded harmlessly, but the fleet did not retreat. They attacked again and again. Every shot was small compared to alien power, but each one carried determination. Then something unexpected happened. A weapon designed from alien fragments struck. The shield of the enemy flickered. Just for a second. But it was enough. A second missile. Followed, it pierced the shield, it struck the alien ship. And for the first time in history, an alien vessel burned. The explosion lit the dark like a second sun. Cheers erupted in the human ships. On Earth, when the news arrived, the world roared. People cried, shouted, embraced. For the first time, victory was real. Not a dream, not a story, but a fact. The alien fleet shifted. Their silence was broken. They had been wounded by humans. The predators of the stars had been cut by the prey, and the galaxy itself seemed to pause. The humans retreated quickly. They knew more alien ships would come, but they did not care. They had proven the impossible. They had struck the enemy and survived. Back on Earth, leaders spoke to their people. They told them the truth. The aliens were not gods. They could be hurt. They could be beaten. The human spirit had found its proof. From that day, everything changed. Factories doubled their speed. Soldiers trained harder. Children dreamed of flying to the stars not in fear but in courage. The tide of despair began to turn. The tide of hope began to rise. The aliens too had learned something. Humans were not. Weak, they were dangerous, fragile bodies, fragile weapons, but a will stronger than steel. A will that refused to die. The first strike had shown alien power, but the first victory had shown human spirit. The war was far from over. The enemy was still vast and terrible. But now the balance had shifted. The tide had begun to turn, and humanity, for the first time, believed it could win. The destruction of the alien vessel changed everything. For the first time, the hunters had felt pain. For the first time, humanity had drawn blood, but victory came with a price. The aliens would not stay silent forever in the blackness of space. Their fleet began to move. Dozens of colossal ships shifted position. Their blue lights burned brighter. Their weapons hummed with power. The message was clear. The final confrontation was coming. On Earth, the news spread quickly. Billions watched screens in silence. Children held their parents' hands. Soldiers kissed their families goodbye. Everyone knew the storm was close, but no one turned away. This time humanity would not hide. The leaders of Earth gathered once again. There was no debate this time, no talk of surrender, no talk of retreat. The choice had already been made. Now it was only about action. Factories thundered with endless work. Engines roared, steel rang, sparks flew. New fleets were built, bigger, stronger, faster than before. Every nation gave its best. Every hand contributed. Earth itself became a single giant workshop of survival. In hidden labs, scientists worked on desperate projects. Energy shields that might stop alien beams. Weapons forged from stolen alien fragments. Engines designed to outmaneuver the giants in space. Most would fail. Some would break. But even one success could change the war. Training grounds echoed with voices. Young men and women became soldiers. Pilots learned to dance with death in the sky. Commanders studied alien movements day and night. Every lesson was sharp. Every mistake could mean extinction. And so, human armies grew, not perfect, but determined. Still, fear remained. Everyone remembered the city that was lost. Everyone remembered the beam of fire. They knew the aliens were still far stronger, but fear no longer ruled them. It only sharpened their courage. Across the planet, people prepared in their own ways. Some built shelters, some prayed, some simply stared at the stars in silence. Every heart beat with the same thought: the final battle is coming. In space, the human fleets gathered. Hundreds of ships lined in dark formation, tiny compared to the alien armada, but united in purpose. Every pilot whispered the same vow: we will fight. From the moon, massive cannons pointed to the void. From Mars, new war factories launched weapons into orbit. Even small asteroids were turned into hidden outposts. Every corner of the solar system was preparing. Earth was no longer just a planet, it was a fortress. And yet, in the silence between stars, doubts whispered, could humanity truly win? Could fragile ships truly stand against titans? Could courage alone defeat fire that could erase cities? No one knew the answer, but no one backed away. The aliens advanced slowly, their ships glowing like cold suns. The ground shook as their signals reached Earth. The sound was like thunder across the void. They were coming, not to test this time, not to threaten, but to end. On the night before the battle, Earth was quiet. Families gathered together, strangers embraced as if they had always been one family. The stars above seemed sharper, brighter, closer. Every human heart beat with both fear and pride. They were about to face the greatest challenge of their existence. The final battle had not yet begun, but the world already knew. History was about to be written in fire, and the future of humanity would be decided among the stars. The stars above. Earth burned brighter that night. The alien fleet had arrived. Dozens of colossal ships filled the void. Their blue lights glowed like cold suns. Their shadows stretched across planets and moons. The final battle had begun. Human fleets rose to meet them. Hundreds of ships, small compared to the alien giants. But each one carried the courage of millions. Pilots whispered their last words to families. Commanders gave orders with steady voices, and the world below held its breath. The first strike came from the aliens. A beam of white fire cut through the void. One human ship vanished in an instant, but the others did not run. They charged forward, firing missiles, lasers, and weapons built from desperate dreams. The sky of space turned into fire. Explosions lit the blackness. Alien shields flared with power. Human ships broke apart like sparks, yet more kept coming, one wave after another, like the tide of the ocean. Endless, relentless, unstoppable. On the moon, massive cannons roared. Their beams struck alien shields, one flickered, one cracked, and cheers erupted from the underground bases. Even the giants could bleed. On Mars, hidden war factories launched drones. Swarms of tiny machines filled the void, too small for alien weapons to track. They clung to enemy hulls. They burned and cut, like ants crawling over giants. And for the first time, alien vessels shuddered. Still, the price was terrible. Human ships exploded one after another. Every victory was paid with sacrifice, every inch of survival bought with lives, but no one retreated. Not a single fleet turned back. Inside the largest human ship, the commander stood tall. Her voice was steady, though fire shook the hull. "We are not fighting for today," she said. "We are fighting for tomorrow." Her crew answered with one word: humanity. The alien mothership moved closer. It was larger than mountains. Its weapons glowed with terrible light. It fired a beam toward Earth itself, but human fleets threw themselves in its path. One after another, ships blocked the strike, exploding in sacrifice but protecting their world. The mothership trembled. Its arrogance met with resistance. Its power met with defiance. And in that moment, humanity unleashed its last weapon, a device built from alien fragments carried by a single fragile ship. The pilot knew he would not return, but he flew forward anyway, past fire, past wreckage, past death, straight toward the mothership. The aliens unleashed their fury. Beams tore through space, but the little ship danced between them, broken, burning, but unyielding, closer, 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 until at last it reached the heart of the giant. The device detonated. Light brighter than the sun filled the void. The mothership cracked. Its shield shattered. Its body split apart like a mountain breaking into dust, and the alien fleet froze. For the first time, the predators of the stars knew fear. Their leader had fallen. Their pride had been wounded. By a species they thought weak. By humans, across Earth, cheers erupted. Tears of grief mixed with cries of victory. The cost was beyond measure. But the impossible had been done. The mothership was gone. The battle was not over. But the tide had turned. In the silence that followed, the surviving human fleets regrouped. Their numbers were small, their ships broken but their spirit unshaken. The aliens still had power, but humanity had proven something greater. They could not be crushed, they could not be erased, they could fight and they could win. The final battle was not yet complete, but history had already been written. The day humanity stood against giants and refused to kneel. The wreckage of the alien mothership still drifted in space. Its burning fragments glowed like dying stars. For the first time, The invincible hunters had fallen, and for the first time, humanity stood tall in the eyes of the galaxy. The war was not fully won. Many alien ships still remained, but something deeper had changed. The aliens no longer saw humans as prey. They saw them as rivals. Dangerous, unpredictable, unyielding rivals. On Earth, people poured into the streets. Some wept for the dead, some prayed in silence, but most raised their voices in a single roar, not of fear, not of surrender, but of defiance. We are human, we will not kneel. Leaders spoke to their people with new strength. They did not promise easy days. They did not promise safety, but they promised unity, and unity had already proven stronger than alien fire. Scientists continued to study the remains of the mothership. They discovered secrets of alien energy. They learned new ways to build, new ways to fight. But most importantly, they learned a truth. Humanity had been underestimated. And now the galaxy would never underestimate them again. The aliens withdrew into the dark for now. Perhaps to regroup. Perhaps to rethink. Perhaps to simply watch. But one thing was certain. They would return. And when they did, they would face a species forever changed, because humanity had answered the question, the test of survival, the test of will, the test of spirit, and the answer was written in fire and sacrifice. Humans may fall, humans may bleed, but humans do not bow. Ordinary people carried the lesson too. Farmers in their fields worked with pride. Workers in factories built with determination. Children drew pictures of ships fighting in the stars. Even those who had lost everything whispered the same words. We will endure. The galaxy listened. Other species hidden in the shadows watched carefully. Some feared humanity, some admired them. Some began to whisper stories of fragile creatures from a blue planet who stood against giants and survived. The legend spread like fire across the stars. Humans, the stubborn ones. Humans, the defiant ones. Humans, the species that would rather burn than kneel. A tale was born, and with it, respect. Back on Earth, the survivors honored. Their fallen memorials rose in ruined cities. Names were carved in stone. Songs were sung of pilots who never returned. And families lit candles for heroes who gave everything. Grief was heavy, but it was not empty, because their sacrifice had bought the future of a united Earth. No longer just nations, no longer just borders, but one people, one family, one humanity. The final battle had not ended the war, but it had ended the question. Would humans break under pressure, or would they rise? The answer was clear. They rose. They fought, they endured, and so, when history remembered this time, it did not write of fear. It wrote of courage, it wrote of unity. It wrote of a moment when humanity looked into the face of extinction and refused to blink. This was how humanity responded, not with silence, not with surrender, but with fire, with sacrifice, with spirit, and with the unshakable will to live free.